I'm just
Hey, just dating, yeah.
Yes, we are.
That's part of the HOA.
So I printed out 3 copies and then
Oh,
just
still?
I'll take it.
Okay. I'll write my notes. So are you working on this?
But I'll benefit from it. Another. I'm working on it.
It's just like a knee-jerk reaction from 20 years ago.
I kind of prefer it because somebody gets
Alrighty, I'll call the meeting to order, so thank y'all for being here tonight, and welcome to Stallings Town Council. So if y'all please join me in the invocation and our pledge to get started. Dear Lord, just thank you for the many blessings you've given this town and each one of us. We just give you all the praise and glory. Be with us tonight as give us the courage and wisdom to do what's best for our town and our citizens. Everything we do and say, I give you all the praise and glory. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up is our public comments. We'll see if we have any. No public comments. So first up is the consent agenda. Y'all see the minutes there. David, did you get your minutes?
I'm still looking for it.
Oh, we do have somebody to speak?
Yes, sir, that's for the.
Oh, that's right here. Yes, ma'am.
February 11th minutes refers to Carco as Monco. I think we might need to correct that.
Yeah.
And also, I think that same set of minutes talks about the state representatives that we met with on the 22nd as delegates. You might want to give them the titles that entitled to for those.
All right.
So those were the only changes I wanted to mention there.
Okay. So David, you're still reviewing it?
Yes.
Okay. We can get that in next meeting. That'd be great. All right. Any other changes? And Ms. Heisey's not here tonight? Oh, that's she. I knew she was not. I couldn't remember that. All righty. Can I get a motion on the consent agenda?
Approve the consent agenda with the changes to the minutes from February the 11th.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Ms. Paxton, second by Ms. Steele, all in favor? That's unanimous. All right, thank you. All right, here we have our reports. Report from the mayor. We had our quad meeting, and we had full attendance. Alex and I attended, so that was unusual to have everybody attend, but it's still going on. I still think there's a lot of value in it, and it doesn't cost us anything. We have plenty of money in the bank, so a lot of ideas are shared at those meetings, and especially among the town managers. So a lot of talk at this meeting about transportation, and so talked to Linda since she's the chair of the transportation committee. She's got some ideas that we want to talk, pool our three towns together, as we talked about before, the quad might give us more influence over NCDOT. So that's good. And I also met with the hospital folk. They just want to give me a quick update on what's going on. They're very happy with Ms. Hare's leadership from our planning department. So full steam ahead there. The one thing they did say, the rendering that was in the paper, they don't know where it came from. It didn't come from them. And so I guess Union County Weekly found an atrium hospital. So he said the one they could build is going to look much nicer. So, and the second thing is, I know last week our last meeting we talked about putting a staff to get a bid on the irrigation system down there. They're fully prepared to make that as nice as we want it. They want it to look very nice. So I'm glad to pay for the irrigation and make it look good. So when we get the number, we'll start talking with them. All right, well, that's all I had. Ms. Paxton?
Okay, well, I have several things. First of all, I want to thank our planner, Lynn Hare. She did a very nice presentation to the Metropolitan Transit Commission last week, and it is official now. We are included in the locally preferred alternative to bring the light rail line into Stallings across the county line. So we're on the plan, and pretty excited about that. Also, at the Union County Carco meeting this last week, Warren Hanson did talk about the comprehensive transportation plan. That's the really long-range plan. That's really not much more than a wish list, but it's got a lot of projects on there that will never be built. So he is working to clean that up, and things that they know will not get built or that towns no longer want, they're taking those off of that plan and notifying the property owners who are affected by mail. They also have a new interactive transportation resource called MetroQuest, which will go live this Friday. And they're really hoping that that will go viral. There's a lot of information for citizens on there about projects, just a little detail, but it also asks for feedback on those, so it gives people a chance to interact with that. The Union County critical intersection process is underway, and they devised some new metrics for how they can quantify those decisions. And our project is needing at least 35 points to get recommended. And our Transportation Advisory Committee had asked, and I think this council too, that we resubmit the Lawyers Road intersection and have it reevaluated again. Warren Cooksey reported at that meeting that they hit a peak with transactions for the bypass on Martin Luther King weekend with 80,000 transactions, which was the highest yet. And our transaction is not the whole route, but anytime you go under a gantry, that counts as a transaction. And the truck count is up 20%, I believe, was in December. The Transportation Advisory Committee also met last week, and we had some discussion about the possibility of the town adopting an ordinance to address on-the-street parking. And the committee wanted council to consider that because there's access to, or difficulty with access for emergency vehicles, and a lot of times people are parked near the intersection so you can't see to actually get out into the intersection. And there's parking across sidewalks, the narrow street widths in a lot of the neighborhoods make it difficulty to pass, or to, particularly for the emergency vehicles to get in. I did ask our police chief if he would maybe want to have some input into that. He did raise some questions about if council decides to consider this, whether or not we would put fines, buy signage. Wanted to know whether it would be 24/7 or maybe during just limited times, and whether or not we would allow police to boot the vehicles if were parked illegally. I did get some photos from TAC members. He went out and just took some. I'll just pass those by so you can see. But often there are cars parked across the sidewalks and parked on both sides of the street, which does, if the streets are narrow, make it difficult. So I don't want to add this to the agenda tonight, but it is something the TAC wanted council to consider. And as Mayor Dunn mentioned at the planning conference, Lehman Bryce did talk about the Lake Norman Transportation Commission. And that was a group that was formed with 4 towns. It was Huntersville, Morrisville, Cornelius, and Davidson. And they actually entered into an interlocal agreement and paid Bill Funberg a salary to facilitate those meetings. But the committee seemed to think maybe if the quad was willing to take that up, that might be better than starting another committee to deal with some of the same issues. It sounds like they were willing to focus on transportation, which will give us a lot more clout. And the last thing I wanted to mention, I did talk at the planning conference also about the Citizens Academy, and I did put together just a very tentative draft of what we might do with those sessions, and I'm looking for any input you all would like to give as far as topics or panel members or speakers for those sessions. And again, not looking for this tonight, but it's kind of an ambitious schedule because I think it would be wise to get this underway before we get into the summer vacation, because once school is out, and also Debbie agreed to help me with this, and she'll be gone. So I put tentative dates starting April the 9th, which gives us just a month to kind of finalize these plans and to run it 6 sessions. And it's intended to be interactive, probably limiting to about 25 people. When the League of Women Voters did this, we did charge a registration fee, but that was mainly because we didn't have any funds. I think as a town, we probably would not want to charge people to be part of this. And the other question I really am looking for feedback from you all is whether or not to include an education session, because the town does not involve itself in education, but I think that is something our citizens are probably pretty interested in understanding, particularly people who've moved from other places. So just think about some of these things, and any feedback you can give me, I'd like to hear it as soon as possible so we can finalize some of these ones. And that's my report.
I appreciate your work on this.
And it will help you for these classes. Absolutely.
Mr. Martin?
Ms. Paxton and I attended an inter-municipality informal meeting, and we've been continuing the series of these meetings over the last few months. In this latest meeting, we talked about a couple topics. One in particular, I was going to defer to the town manager and the chief of police. We had a presentation from a couple folks who are very involved in fighting and educating the police force about sex trafficking in Charlotte. Apparently Charlotte is one of the top 5 destinations in the nation, and there was some concern from these groups that that maybe there wasn't as much inroads with the officers in the Charlotte metro region as possible. So I'm happy to pass that information along and see if you guys are interested. The other thing I wanted to mention was this intermunicipal, we spit it out tonight, agencies, 4 different communities in it. It's all informal. We were discussing several opportunities with the county. In particular, the county has been considering high-density apartments and high-density development on the edge of municipalities lately. And there were some concerns over the communication there, as well as letting the planning agency that these towns have some input. So we agreed to, again, informally to work with each other to do a better job of communicating. And additionally, there was some concern raised over infrastructure. As you know, the county's implementing a $70 million plus water project, and there's some debate on in the county right now whether that additional water is going to come to the western side of the county or the eastern side. And there's currently several places in the western side of town that are at or beyond capacity when it comes to fresh water and gray water. So we need to make sure that when we have these developments come up, we're communicating that that may be an issue out there. And also, apparently the county has a process by which the first shovel in the ground gets the capacity, not necessarily the approved project. So that was enlightening to say the least. So, something to be aware of. Thank you.
When we were at the elected officials reception, did y'all happen to speak with Chairman Helms about the water project?
We did not.
Because he told me, don't worry about it, you'll be taken care of. So that was a short answer.
My understanding, there was a difference of opinion with another particular council.
Is that right?
So,
I will have to keep my eye on
yeah.
that. Thank you for that work, Mr. Martin. Ms. Romano?
I have nothing.
All right. Chief Show?
Going last, it's hard to say something original.
You guys are like killing me. We're like a
Sorry,
North, you think
forgot
Pat's
you're down
going,
there.
forget about me?
I have nothing different to do.
Ms. Sam?
All I want to say is shout out to the Parks and Rec Committee and all the staff and the police department that was here last Saturday for the touch a truck, or the previous Saturday. It was, I don't know if it was because it was the first day in like 7 years that we had not did not have any rain, or the fact it was just a new event for a different type of demographic, kid, and you would think it was just key for boys, but there are just as many little girls out there climbing on the big trucks and having a ball. And I just kudos to all the vendors that brought out their equipment, and I was just really disappointed I missed the helicopter. So thanks.
All right. Now we'll go to town committees. Any committee reports? Anybody got anything there? All right. Town manager, Alex?
Thank you, sir. Good evening to everyone. First thing, just to follow up on Ms. Steele's comments about the touch a truck. We had projected between 500 to 600 folks, and we rolled the decimal point over, and we estimated we had about 5,000.
Wow.
And to put that in perspective, Stallings Fest is like 7,500. So it was a big event, bigger than we thought, could have ever imagined. I'm really proud of our Parks and Rec department, Ashton, Marathon, and our Public Works department, and our police department for all their hard work, and Parks and Rec committee as well. We were a victim of our own success in a way, because parking was a big issue. But I was really proud of the way that everybody responded. Parks and Rec staff went with Public Works to help direct traffic. Some of our police officers jumped up, Sergeant Davis, Sergeant Ivy, to help direct traffic. I'm just really proud of the response there of everybody. Second thing, we've got our emergency tabletop exercise on Wednesday. Due to unexpected circumstances, we've had to cancel this twice, so I'm real proud of Aaron for getting this together for a third time. This will be a mock scenario so that we can learn from our mistakes and how we respond to emergencies, so that when we respond to a real emergency, we can do it right. Third thing I wanted to bring to your attention was the boomerang contract for the second floor town hall renovations. Council approved or requested a 10% reduction in cost, a specific breakdown of the work to be done, and so Boomerang has provided that information. So unless there are any objections, go ahead and proceed with this contract.
Any questions for Alex on this? We asked him for it, they came through, so. All right. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, thank you all. New Town Hall, as you all know, we roof rolled over there behind the Public Works pad and got some kind of clay, sandy soil, and replaced, I think, over 700 cubic yards of soil over there. Contractor roof rolled the Town Hall site, and it appears though we're going to need about 5 to 6 feet of undercut in that area, which is not as much as the Public Works side, but it's not cheap. We're looking at about $40,000 to kind of replace the soil and get that compaction to where we need it to be. But $40,000, we have almost $99,000 in contingency for bad soil. So we should be still well within our budget in that regard. The Vickery subdivision, there have been a number of concerns with expressed to our staff about the speed at which the builder has made some kind of infrastructure improvements to areas of concern, punch list items. And so our staff are going to be meeting with the Vickery residents later this week to kind of hear some of their concerns and hopefully serve as facilitators with the builder to try to get some of those concerns addressed. Idlewild Corridor, we continue to have discussions and negotiate with the DOT to try to get that to where we would like it to be. As you know, they proposed a super street, and we're going to kind of continue to have discussions with them and try to meet with the division director, Scott Cole, personally, have a conversation with him. Thank everybody on the staff, Ms. Paxton, Chris, Lynn, and everybody else for all the hard work there.
I saw your note on that. You didn't think the meeting went that well as far as the town expectations?
You know,
what were they pushing back on? Our design?
They like the idea of Super Street. Their focus is mainly moving traffic as efficiently as possible from point A to point B. And we, I would like to say, take a more holistic approach to things. What kind of effect does that have on kind of residents, property owners, and is that transportation infrastructure, because it has a huge impact on development, what kind of impact is that going to have, and is it going to be aligned with the vision that the council and the town have for the area? And Super Street, I think we've established, would not be aligned with that vision. And we're trying to figure out a way to have as least amount of Super Street elements, for lack of a better word, as possible, and kind of lock in that transportation network in there so development can be predictable and be fertile for what we want to come.
Well, I know you all been talking to DOT a long time on that, and I know how Mr. Cole feels about it, but let's don't wait too long to pump this up.
Yes, sir.
To Raleigh. I know several of us have spoken to our legislators, and they're almost hands off, but as I said, it's tax money. Legislatures are charged with allocating that tax money, and it's $7 million or whatever it is, $10 million of wasting money in the Super Street.
Alex, in response, I think the part, and I was talking to somebody today, they were asking me what they were thinking of doing on Ottawa, and I said, the part that is the most confusing part for me, and I know I'm just an elementary teacher, but the part that's confusing for me is make a super street, they're going to go through the intersection at Stevens Mill, and then they're all going to be crammed down to 2 lanes again. How is that moving traffic? It isn't. And why they think that that's going to be the best way to do it, it is beyond me. I just can't comprehend the reasoning there.
Especially when the land beyond Stevens Mill is fairly undeveloped, and now would be the opportunity to plan that infrastructure. I will say, in addition to Ms. Romanos, I will say I've heard time and time again over the impact of businesses along 74 along where the super street is implemented. There's been social media posts galore about businesses closing. I've heard secondhand that the ABC store in Indian Trail, that revenue's down simply for the stuff ABC stores are printing money. So there is definitely business impact, and I think that NCDOT needs to be aware of that, and that needs to be a substantial consideration.
Thank you. Oh. One last little thing. As we go through the balanced scorecard goal setting process, one of the things that's kind of come out of it, and this is a credit to our planning department, Lynn and Colleen, our awesome code enforcement officer, is they're going to look to organize some litter sweeps for our community. So more details of that will probably come in the future. So we're looking at having, as part of a public engagement effort, maybe several Saturdays in April, some details still on there, I'll let you know. Once those get finalized. That's all I've got.
All right.
Thank you.
All righty. Let's see. Well, next up, I'll turn over to town departments, and now I'd like to turn it over to Chief Fowler. I understand you have a...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know I should be back here, but I've got to come up here.
All right.
Got to find the best place to do this, and since he knows what I'm doing, I'm going to face y'all.
All right.
If I can get Miss Barbara Estes to come in, please. Since the police department started in 2004, Mrs. Barbara Estes, one of our town residents, has been up here, has been such a huge supporter of the department. She has brought untold pounds of baked goods and has invited us over holidays for dinner. Just a constant support for the department. And we love you.
Thank you so much.
For that, if I can get this out of the box without being clumsy. This is to Ms. Barbara Estes. In appreciation for your support and caring from us to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's an honor.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate
Chief, why don't you get a picture with all your...
it. Guys, come up here, get around. And we will let you hold this.
You gonna take her first?
As long as you hit it back, you can.
Right here. Come on in, guys.
Some of y'all may have to get in front. You got everybody in there?
No. I'm sorry, guys. Captain Harrington, can you? Tricky. Okay, you ready? 1, 2, 3.
All right. Thank you.
Well, I thought y'all were blaming those extra pounds on your vest, but I guess...
Can't hide that, I'm sorry. A couple other things real quick in the report. As Ms. Paxton spoke about the on-street parking, I reached out to Fire Chief Blythe and Charlie Porter and EMS. In Stallings, they have had no complaints thus far of any emergency response being delayed by the parking. However, I did have the officers do a rough street count of vehicles during the day versus the night, and there is about a 50% increase, at least, in the evening hours when people are home. So as you go through the process of that, I'm sure there are lots of things to weigh in on, but I just want you to know about that. Also, I had a couple of questions from council about the crime mapping product. Union County Sheriff's Office has a product that we combine with for our computer system called OSSI. Their product is not working right now. The county has outsourced it to another vendor. They're working, contacted that vendor. They're going to give me a proposal on what it would take to add our data to that site. So that's in the works as well. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief. All right, next up is our agenda. So any additions, amendments, or change of order? We do need to add a closed session at the end, whatever our last one becomes there. Pursuant, it's real quick, pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, Section A, 3, and A5. It won't take that long, just information only. So any other changes here? Let's see. For the police chief hiring process, do we need anybody here? Do we need to move that up, or is it just you?
No, just me.
Just you, and then, or just you?
We'll just do it the way they
Yeah, just make that 9 a.m.
Yep.
Closed session, yes, ma'am. All righty. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda with the changes of adding 9A, going into closed session pursuant to that big long number.
All right.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Romanow, second by Mr. Martin. All in favor to approve the agenda? That's unanimous. All right, thank you. All right, first up is Lynn with our text amendment 19.02.01. Thank you, Lynn. Oh, let me open the public hearing. And then we'll have information from staff first, and then we'll have public comments. We have 3 people signed up to speak.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of council, we have before us this evening a text amendment request, and the applicant is Terwilliger Pappas. They are requesting this evening that you all would consider amending Article 9.4.3 of the Stallings Development Ordinance that would allow multifamily buildings at a height of up to 41 feet. What they are requesting is 41 feet. Our current ordinance allows 36 feet, so that's a difference of 5 feet. That's what's being requested. The reason they're requesting this amendment, when we adopted our small area plans, we increased densities in the areas, certain areas of town, specifically for not only multifamily buildings, but for commercial buildings, for hotels, for different uses. And what we're finding is, specifically with multifamily, to achieve the densities that we're wanting to accomplish within these small area plans, the height's not working. We are also hoping to have a product that has architectural elements that fit in with the residential character of certain parts of town, and we're also wanting to attract higher quality development. So in order to do that, these buildings really do need to be able to be at least 3 stories. At 4 stories would be ideal. So that's what is being requested this evening. Terwilliger Pappas is building a project out on the Chestnut Lane at the intersection of Memphis Weddington Road, and they are looking for this height increase so they can build their project at that location. I mentioned that our ordinance currently allows building types in the MU2 district. Right now, an urban workspace can be 3 stories. Doesn't give any type of height there. You can have a civic building, which is what we're standing in right now, up to 45 feet. A shop front building, which would be a retail space, could be up to 45 feet. And then you can have highway buildings at 50. We also did an amendment right after we adopted our current UDO that allowed buildings at 50 feet along Highway 74 in that corridor. So what's being requested is not out of the ordinary. There's already heights in there now that are higher than what is being requested. Our planning board did hear this request at their last meeting. They are in support of it. Staff is also in support of this request. But one thing I wanted to mention is we actually feel like going to 4 stories would serve the town better. There's a couple of reasons for that, and I think the applicant will touch on it this evening. But when you're looking to build an apartment building that's of higher quality, usually the ceilings are a bit higher in there. You might have a 10-foot ceiling. There's also some architectural elements like roof pitches they would like to see. And then when you get up to a 4-story building, developers will start putting elevators in there. It doesn't make a lot of financial sense for them to do that until they get up to that 4-story range. So we feel like going to 4 stories would actually allow for a higher quality product in multifamily. So that is what staff would recommend. I just wanted to introduce that as something we may want to discuss, but the applicant is only requesting 41. So I wanted to mention that. The applicant is here this evening, and they have a presentation for you, but I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have now or after your presentation, whatever you prefer.
All right, thank you, Lynn.
Lynn, real quick, you and I talked, but just want to be clear, we did check with fire and...
Yes, I made a note of that on my notes and forgot to mention it, but there were some questions brought up at the planning board meeting about the fire department, and if they had issues with the request or concerns. I actually heard back from Mr. Blythe, who I believe is the Stallings Fire, or the Hemby Bridge Fire Marshal, as well as Mr. Porter. They both said that they were fine with 41 feet or 4 stories. that they had no concerns with that. And then Kevin Regoli, who's the fire marshal for the county, actually reached out to me today just to make sure that there were no fire concerns or hazards or anything that he was concerned about in terms of the height. So we did check to make sure that there were no issues with it. So thank you for bringing that.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much, Council, Mayor Dunn, council members and staff. What we wanted to do is just spend a couple minutes walking you through the ask from our perspective. And in doing so, we actually want to show you a little bit about the project itself. We've appreciated all the time that council members, staff, the planning board have given us thus far. Just trying to be very open with you as to what we're looking to do here. So this will probably take about 5-10 minutes. So Jeff Smith and I, we're the development team for Terwilliger Pappas here in Charlotte. So I hope everyone understands that we've been in main contact with us all along. Jeff lives here in the neighborhood. I'm a 16-year resident of Charlotte. So the folks that you're getting here on this team are people that care very much about Stallings and its growth. A little bit about us as a company, which I think is important in this conversation. There's two people in Terwilliger Pappas. There's Ron Terwilliger and Peter Pappas. Peter Pappas is probably the name some of you may know. He's a local developer who's been doing real estate development in Charlotte for 35 years. His modus operandi, as well as ours as a company, is about placemaking and creating place. We don't just go into places, and Peter just can go into places, build something, and walk away. Peter's been a part of the Bearwood Master Plan community for 20 years in Southwest Charlotte. It's a 1,500 acre, almost 2,000 home project now. He was part of the team that developed Burkdale, part of the team that developed Metropolitan, Phillips Place, and some of our probably metro area's top mixed-use developments. So when we get involved in a project, Jeff and I, a lot of what we're focused on is about placemaking, creating place, and about architectural integrity, good design. I won't belabor this. We already covered it. Our ask is to increase the height from 36 feet to 41 feet. We think in order for us to deliver a quality product that we know that we can develop, that's the minimum increase that we need. We respect all the work that has been done previously on the small area plans. We didn't want to come in with a larger ask, so we challenged our architects and our engineers and said, what is the minimum amount of height we need to develop a plan that we'll show you? And 41 feet was the answer.
This slide shows the difference of what you can get in a 36 feet versus a 41 foot tall building. I think it's important, and Lynn highlighted some of these items already. At 36 feet, you can get 8-foot floors, maybe some 9-foot. But really in the marketplace, 9 foot is a standard now. 10 foot for the premium units that we want to get some 10-foot ceiling heights, and we can do that in 41 feet. With the increase in ceiling heights, you can get oversized windows, which are a more modern look. They let in more light. They make the apartments feel more spacious. We also want to do elevators. Typically, as Lynn said, those are done in a 4-story, 5-story building. We believe in this market, we're competing with projects that have been developed at Waverly, and a lot of those projects have elevators. We also expect to attract up to a third of our residents being over age 55, and that we feel that they will be looking for elevators. So in order for this project to be successful, we need to be able to do elevators in the majority of our buildings. Lastly, we can create a more attractive roof pitch. There's see on the left, you're going to have a very low sloped roof, or you're going to have a flat roof if you stay at 36 feet. But if you get up to 41 feet, you can create a roof pitch that's more in line with the single family homes that are in Stallings, and it will fit in better with the community.
So this was just a few examples of projects that are under 41 feet in height. These pictures are broken up. On the left are projects that have a pitched roof. On the right are projects that have a flat roof. So if you were to stay in the 36-foot category, in order for someone to do 3 stories, they're likely doing a flat roof on the right, which is probably too urban of a feel, certainly for the location that we're looking at. If they're doing something on the left, or if they're doing a pitched roof, it's going to look something like on the left. It's as Jeff mentioned already, you're probably doing 8-foot ceiling heights in all the units, which is just out of market today. So we went back and we looked at, what have we done specifically at Terwilliger Pappas as a 41-foot height project. And this is our Souls Valentine project, which is just across the street from the YMCA in Valentine. This project is actually 41 feet 2 inches. So if we wanted to recreate something like that at Chestnut Farm, this is kind of what it would look like. And as you notice, it's 3 stories. We're not asking to go higher than 3 stories here. Our original plan did call for 3 stories, or 4 stories. And we think a 4-story project could work really well here. I'm happy to go into that in a question and answer session. But for our request of you is that we're looking to do something like this, staying in 3 stories, just going up to 41 feet. So as we think about this design for the project, I'm just going to walk you through some imagery of our project in a second. One of the first things that we do as developers, we think about who's the target demographic. And as you see on the screen here, as Jeff alluded to, we think a large component of the folks that are going to live here are going to be what we call empty nesters, or jokingly, Jeff's and my parents. Hopefully they can come and take care of our kids. We think you're going to get a significant number of families here as well. In fact, one of the rooms that we're designing is a little kind of child, almost like a little playroom right next to the kind of workout room. We would hire a babysitter to kind of watch kids for a couple of hours so that moms and dads can go get their workout, while their kids are being watched. And we think there's some demographic of mature professionals. We don't think that there's millennials that are going to live here, or very few. This product is going to target people who are frankly affluent. The question came up at the planning board meeting, what's the average rent you think you're going to charge here? And hopefully this answers the question and kind of helps alleviate any concern about the stigma of renters. We think the average rent here is probably at north of $1,500. That breaks down to about $1,300 for a 1-bedroom. That's about $1,700 to $1,900 for a 2-bedroom. That's $2,700 to $3,000 for a 3-bedroom unit. I bring that up because to charge those types of rents, we've got to design a really nice product. Since Jeff's the design partner, he's really good at this.
I know some of you have seen these images before. This gives you a sense of what we're trying to create on the site. So really the maximum would be 3-story buildings, but we'll have a club building that'll be 1 story to 1.5 stories in height. Looking at some townhome carriage unit type buildings that'll be 2 stories in height. So there'll be a variation in height. It'll give it more of a neighborhood feel. And also have this farm type architecture with some masonry stones, the board and batten siding. Really make it feel like it fits in. And we think people will be attracted to this area over living somewhere else because they appreciate the small town of Stallings. They want to be close to people that they know they want access into Charlotte. This site plan also we've shared. This is generally the way the site will lay out. Two key components I think that are important that we really paid attention to in developing this plan. We wanted the parking lots to feel more like streets than to be a sea of parking. And we also, when we met with Lynn and talked more about the Greenway plan, we wanted to make sure our project connected to it. And so we'll be building the portion of the Greenway that connects to Colonel Beatty Park and comes through our site and connects back to Matthews Weddington Road. And we think that's going to be a huge amenity to our project. The next 2 slides just give you some images of the interiors. We'll spend as much time designing the exteriors as we will with the interior spaces, both the amenities, the leasing office, and the apartments themselves. This gives you some ideas of what the level of finish will be in those apartments and the attention to detail that you'll see. We really appreciate you having us here tonight. We're open to any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Any questions?
My first question is for you, Lynn. they're only asking for 41 feet, but you have indicated that maybe in some other locations or some other projects, it might be advantageous to be more than that. So since we are possibly altering the ordinance or the text in the ordinance, would it be better to do something other than 41 than to just deal with this particular project?
I think you would be wise in considering the 4 feet. Any change that we make to the ordinance is going to be a town-wide change.
Right.
But yes, I think that we need to take the bigger picture into consideration, and I think that the 4 stories would serve us better. It would help us get a more quality project, I think, projects in other areas of town as well.
And the other question I have would be for you guys. Chief Bly did call me this afternoon. I had asked him for some input with regard to the parking ordinance, and he brought up about your project, and he said he's fine with 55 feet, but the concern is access, and he said they need to be sure they have access to the building and that there are balconies for people to get out on, and that there's ample space in the parking areas for them to have 50 feet from the building to have a truck, and then the truck needs 20 feet wide. So is that part of the plan that you're bringing with those parameters?
Yes, very much so. We're working with a civil engineer who knows all about the fire requirements for truck turning radiuses, proximity from the building. All the buildings will have sprinklers and alarm systems. We'll have to get both a building permit and site plan approval to do this project, so those issues will come up during that process.
Thank you.
Mr. Show?
This is for Lynn. Quick question. What's the difference between 41 feet and 4 stories in feet?
Well, when we say 4 stories, then that gives the applicant a little bit more flexibility in the way they design it. 4 stories could be 45 feet. 4 stories could be 50 feet if you have a higher pitch on a roof. These guys can probably address that a little better than I can with their architectural backgrounds, but it just gives that flexibility. If you do a flat product, like if you do something that does look a little more urban, 40 feet may be plenty, for 4 stories. So it just gives, I think if we just say 4 stories, then that flexibility is built in, and it allows for those architectural differences.
Ms. Martin?
If it were the will of the council to make that change to the UDO to go to 4 stories, would that require that this needed to take back to the planning board?
It would not, unless Melanie believes it should go back.
How was it presented to the planning board?
We presented the applicant's request.
Was 4 stories ever?
I don't remember whether or not that was discussed at the planning board.
Yeah, if it wasn't discussed, I think it would have to be vetted through them first.
Ms. Romano?
I was basically going to say the same thing. Why don't, if we can, do you guys remember, was anything said at planning board about 4 stories? Craig or Jeff?
It was part of the question and answer session, and we'll volunteer a little bit of information. For us on this particular plan, if we were to do 4 stories, we would actually raise, we would raise this building to 4 stories. We would leave these in 3. And the reason that's important is because right now we're going to put a multifamily building here. It's because it's staying 3 stories, we have to get a multifamily building here. If we were to go to 4 stories, that frees up that part of the site, and we wanted to put in a rezone portion. So that speaks directly to the value of 4 stories versus 3 stories if you want to promote kind of multi-use. Other than that, height-wise, you could be, for a product that we would build, 4 stories would likely be 50, above 50 feet.
I mean, Melanie, just to your question, when we talked about the need for 4 stories and about that being the preference, but it wasn't presented as the request, if that's what you're asking. I mean, it was discussed, it was...
41 feet, what they reacted to the applicant's request. My concern is, as Lynn just said, if we change the UDO, is for every area. And every area might not, 4 stories, 55 feet apartment unit might not be applicable, might not fit. So I'd rather take it case by case. Let them come to count, go to the planning board, go through the process. And so that's my thought. Because I certainly like the pitch roof idea. Support this one, 41 feet versus flat roofs, those sorts of nice product. But I hate to do it. I like the council being flexible on the UDO since it's brand new. We don't know, but I'd like for us to take each case into account.
Do we have, sorry, Mr.
No, I got you.
Do we have that flexibility in the development agreement process? So if the council, if the will of council was to take it to 4 stories, and we had an applicant come in and presented a 4-story project where we felt a 3-story in a particular location was a better fit for the community, could we limit that?
It is my understanding in the development agreement process, you can't really make changes to the density. You could lower it or lessen it, but you can't increase it, I know that for sure. But there, I don't know, Melanie, is that with the development agreement? I didn't think, I know you can't, set densities, that's really a zoning issue, so it's my understanding no. And really the only way to do a height, discuss height on a case-by-case basis is it would go to the Board of Adjustment for a variance. It wouldn't come to this board for that type of discussion, so that's something to consider as well. If you're, if they didn't want, if they hadn't come to you for an ordinance amendment, they would have to have gone to the Board of Adjustment for a variance.
Okay. Oh, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't want to hold up this developer. I find value in what they're presenting, and I think we should give the opportunity to move forward. But I do think, to your point, this is a larger discussion we should have maybe a 4-story.
This is not specific to their location only, is it? Yes or no?
That is correct, it is not.
So it's townwide. So no matter what we do, this text, any text amendment would be townwide. So we can't just specifically give them 41 and hold the others to 30, whatever.
Yep.
Gotcha. So I agree with John. I'd like to have the discussion of 4 stories in the near future.
Very near future for me. And the reason I say that is because, of course, this is in my neck of the woods, and I'm sad that we're going to lose that retail commercial component at the front there because we can't go to 4 stories on the main biggest building, when I think that would spur development on that commercial on the Rayleigh property. I think that would be kind of the kick that they need to get moving and get their project going. And I wish that there was a way that we could change it tonight to 45. I don't know, or, I mean, there was discussion, questions about going to 45, and, I mean, so to me, that's discussion. It isn't what the applicant has requested, but that is kind of the desire they had in the beginning. At least that's what I understand. So I think that would be beneficial to us to consider that, so that they can possibly consider going back to a 4-story building and the commercial in the front, commercial/retail in the front.
Any other comments?
Might get a restaurant.
I just wanted to make one comment, if I may. I know that 45 feet will get you a 4-story flat roof building, but will not get you a pitched roof.
And that's the aesthetics that
Right.
you're looking for.
Right.
Yeah, we'll do it in a second. So any other comments, questions from council? All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the comments from the public. First up is Craig Miller. Is
That was me.
Oh, that's you. Okay. That's right. I'm sorry to ring that. Your handwriting's terrible. I was at Dabo Sweeney's event this week at Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and he had his 2nd grade teacher there complimenting her on how she taught him how to write. I didn't mean that bad. It's just, are you Clemson? Next up is Jeff Kissinger.
Yeah, I don't have anything to do with this Chestnut Farm thing, Mayor, but I do have some comments about the blasting that may take place in Stallings, so I'll wait a few minutes.
Well, the public hearing is we don't have a public hearing on the blasting ordinance, but I'll give you a couple minutes.
Okay.
All right. And then third up is David Niekamp, if I pronounce that?
Nothing to add.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't have a formal paper, but I have a couple of questions.
Yep, public comments, it's public comment, so
Okay.
if you can stand up there and state your name and address.
Billy Burke Jr., 3101 Pine Point Street, the Stonewood subdivision. I guess one of the things that come to my mind was, is it a gated community or is it just open? And then I guess, what about the security measures for that? Will it be up to our police force to monitor that?
Well, they're monitored like they do everything else, yes. So as far as private security, that's up to them.
Because I guess one of the concerns, I guess, would be the crime that it may invite. Is there a, like on-campus security or?
Am I supposed to answer that? Well, you can if you want. I mean, it's public comments. You know, he doesn't have to answer them, we don't have to answer them. But you can if you want, but you can answer them if you want.
I would just say that our interests are 100% aligned with yours to make sure that the entire neighborhood is safe or safer than it is now, because we're in the business of whether it's selling a home or leasing space for people. That safety is one of the most important things that people care about. So what we find is that based off of like the lighting that we do, which is code required, the security measures that we take, the safety and security is one of the cornerstones of our company.
May I ask the gentleman a question? Sure. Why do you think that there would be more crime there in this type of a community as opposed to a neighborhood?
Well, I guess the number of units.
Well, my understanding, I mean, my husband and I started an apartment complex almost 40 years ago. And we didn't have crime. I know it was 40 years ago, but I think the kind of rent or leasing payment that's going to go on here, the people that live there aren't going to be doing that anymore. And you're not going to have, I would not think, people going into their neighborhood any more than they would come into mine. I'm in the Chestnut subdivision. Do we have people that do stupid things? Yes. Somebody drove across our lawn and left a big rut over the weekend. You know, kids ride on the walking trail and decide to cut down the grass instead of go to the street. I mean, you're going to have that kind of thing, but I just can't understand. I don't understand or don't think that there would be more crime there than there would be in my neighborhood. Because I think those people are going to watch out for their neighbors with the kind of money they're paying. They're going to be watching out for their neighbors just like we watch out for ours.
Like a difference of renting it versus actually owning and caring about it.
Well, that's the 3-bedroom. I have a 5-bedroom house. That 3-bedroom is way more than my payment for my house. So I would certainly think that they're going to be watching out and making the police aware. And of course, our police department would be. They patrol my street.
They might as well.
So I'm sure they're going to make their presence known, just like they would in our regular neighborhoods.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Any other questions from the council? All right, I'll close the public hearing.
Yes.
Oh.
Can I have a minute?
Yes, sir. Can you add Mr. Falcone?
I'm Larry Falcone, live in the Fairhaven neighborhood, and currently serve on the TAC committee with Ms. Paxton and Ms. Steele. First of all, Stallings, I know they do a great job. I have visited many. In fact, I was looking to lease in the one behind Whole Foods, but they only have 2 bedrooms there, so I'm glad you have 3 bedrooms. Of course, I can't afford $2,700. In any event, my question is, you get into this 3-story, 4-story thing, and really, it amounts to height and density. So you have some parameters, I assume, on density. So I'd be more concerned with the density issue as opposed to the height. And it would be so simple to do a 50-foot height. Or you know, what do you have on the highway corridor? 50 or 55? 50? 54 foot. Yeah. It would be so simple to do something like that. What if they build 2 stories, 3 stories, 4 stories, 5 stories? It doesn't make any difference as long as you have the density that you're controlling right here. So that's my comment.
All right, thank you, Mr. Falcone. All right, now I'll close the public hearing. So, any other comments from the council? Any further final comments? All right, thank you. All right, what's the pleasure of the board? We have this text amendment in front of us. Y'all all seen the agenda with the resolution, the ordinance change here, so. Yes, ma'am.
I'll make a motion that we approve text 19.02.01.
Second by Mr. Martin, motion by Ms. Romano. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. All right, thank y'all. Thank you very much. Oh, I didn't see that in my thing. Is it just two? Is it just a statement, a region? All right, I'll go ahead and read the ordinance amending the Stallings development ordinance of the town of Stallings into the director for text amendment 19.2.01. Whereas on February 26, 2018, the town council adopted the new Stallings developmental ordinance. And whereas increased building height requirements are consistent with the 2017 comprehensive land use plan. And whereas in order to promote an intentional approach to development by providing an opportunity for better design alternatives in multifamily housing is recommended. And therefore, the town council of the town of Stallings do ordain amending the Stallings development ordinance as follows. Article 9, building and lot type standards is hereby amended as follows. 9.4.3, multifamily building type as follows. Permitted heights. Vertical limit is now 41 feet. And then this ordinance will be effective immediately upon adoption. This day, February 11th, on March 11th, 2019. So let me read the statement of consistency and reasonableness. The Stallings Town Council hereby finds that the proposed text amendment is consistent with the 2017 Stallings Comprehensive Land Use Plan adopted November 27, 2017, based on the consistency with goals and objectives set forth in the document. At their March 11, 2019, Stallings Town Council voted to recommend approval of their proposed text amendment and stated that the Town Council finds and determines that the text amendment is consistent with the key guiding principles, goals, and objectives of the comprehensive land use plan, and hereby recommends its approval. This statement and motion was seconded and passed. All right, so I need a motion to approve this statement. Motion by Ms. Romanow, seconded by Mr. Scholl to approve this motion, this statement. All in favor? And that's unanimous. All right. All right, now we're official. Thank you. All right, thank y'all. All right, next up is the U-5808 Chestnut Parkway, this is Highway 74, powder coating. So Alex, can you give us a little background? I know you gave us the memo here. I couldn't understand the maps.
Sure. So we'd be happy to bring that up on the big map if that would be helpful.
That'd be great.
Sure. Just as I walk, I'm gonna walk and talk here. As you know, we're trying to get the mast arms over by the bypass painted. We've bid it out 3 times and had 0 bids submitted each time. We're going to keep on trying to, recruit any contractor we know to kind of submit bids and try to really encourage folks to submit on that. But there's not a lot of appetite for a project that size, it appears thus far. And so, as part of the Super Street project over there on Highway 74, it's my understanding Indian Trail has opted to pay DOT to have a couple of their mast arms powder coated. And like a lot of our jurisdiction, we're close to other areas, and this project spans both of those areas. And so we get here. So I believe this is the area in question, and obviously this is how it looked prior to the upgrades that they're putting in. There's a kind of a turnaround, super street turnaround. And my understanding is it's kind of like this. This is Smith Farm Road, right here, and here's the Chestnut Parkway. See, at that time it's not even constructed. And again, it's my understanding Indian Trail is having a dual mast arm powder coated here and a 60-foot mast arm pole powder coated here. And then down here within this kind of general area, which is within our jurisdiction, DOT is seeking if we would like to powder coat a mast arm pole, which is kind of identified on there at the bottom.
Yeah, the far left.
Yes, sir, the far left up here, and far left on the bottom.
Right.
And then 2 tall pedestal poles.
So they're saying they'll do that for $1,900.
That's what their estimate is right now.
Somewhere there.
We can wiggle, but yes, sir.
But they wouldn't do any of the other poles further down at Stallings Road?
So I believe those poles were already in place.
Right.
I guess this will be something, it's my understanding, that they would kind of powder coat at the factory.
Oh, these are not erected.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Correct. I think that's the frustrating stage.
Well, I'll certainly support this. I mean, maybe one day we'll have somebody to come on and paint our other life. It's a start, $1,900.
Exactly. Do we have any idea why there's such a challenge to get somebody to paint them?
I think it's just the environment that we're in contractor-wise. What was the initial estimate that we got from DOT? The no bid estimate was like 120,000, something like that. And don't get me wrong, that is a huge amount of money. But to a contractor who, in this kind of environment, because it's busy, it's not. You know, with our new town hall project, one of the things we were concerned about, our architect was concerned about, was getting enough bids. And that was obviously a 7-figure contract. So I think it's just the availability of work right now and what contractors do. It's probably not what they're not prepared to look at.
Of course, if they had followed our request when it was in the planning 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, because on the planning board, I remember that coming up, and I've been on the council almost 6 years, and 12 years on the planning board. I know that came up for discussion, because we were wanting to be sure that they looked nice, and that was, so frustrating.
Well, what's the pleasure of the council on this? All right, can I get a motion from somebody?
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the cost and having DOT use the super street powder coating on the mast arms.
And that was $1,900.
Approximately.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
All right, motion by Ms. Rhoda, second by Ms. Paxton to approve powder coating our mast arms at US 74. Two of them as part of U 5808. All in favor? Yes, unanimous. Thank you all. Thank you, Alex. All right, next up is our animals ordinance, animal exception ordinance. So I'll turn that over to Alex.
Sure, thank you. One last thing on that, the Super Street powder coating, if I may. You may recall with the Chestnut roundabout, we made the vote to kind of do it, and then we had to come back for a interlocal agreement with DOT. So I anticipate in the future there being most likely a formal agreement in the future that we bring back, and then we kind of formally agree to kind of make that commitment. So just want to give you a heads up.
I'm sorry, for DOT to make that commitment that in the future, any projects have those powder coated mast arms?
No, forgive me, I misspoke. What I was attempting to communicate was that for this particular project. So we'll tell them, I'll shoot them an email saying, hey, we're in on this, and then as we get closer to the project, I'll most likely send us a contractual agreement or we'll formally agree to make the money to get that painted. It'll be like a bedroom.
We don't have any option though if they forget again to force their hand.
Well, you know, we have that email record for tomorrow morning. We've got a list of checklist things that are from the council. We send it to them, tell them we want it, and then if that happened, we'd probably raise Cain with them and try to get them to do it anyway.
That came to us with this request too, like, so it's unlikely that they'll forget it. Okay.
More confidence in this you do.
All right.
Right.
The animals exception ordinance, all right?
Sure. Just following up from a situation with Pet Day, it's gotten to the point where we're bringing the council to kind of get your direction on. We talked about it before. Got clarification from the Fairfield Plantation that under the rules, pigs are allowed, and just kind of seeking direction from the council on kind of how to proceed. Lay out several kind of options for you all to consider, and happy to answer any questions or you know, hopefully clarify anything that might be of service.
All righty. Well, Mr. Martin, I'll defer to you and anybody else that wants to. On this one, no, it's
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd like to give the opportunity to the affected resident to come up and speak if she'd like.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for having me again. As stated, we did have a neighborhood meeting on this topic, and the majority of the neighbors agree that my pigs are pets and they are not a nuisance to anybody. My animals also are behind a 6-foot privacy fence at all times. They do not get out. They're not loud. They don't bark. They don't chase cars. They don't do any of that. They will sit for treats, so they're a little bit smarter than my dog. But I'm just asking that, one, I'd like it for myself, but also I would like for the town of Stallings, because the county of Union doesn't have a prohibiting for the potbelly pigs. And when I moved to the location that I'm at in the Fairfield the first time, I thought that I was under protection of that. I did not realize that town of Stallings had a separate ordinance. So I would like to propose at least my pets, until they move on to greener pastures, are protected. And also I'd like to say this is the second time that I've come to the meetings, and I do not see whoever it is that made the complaint here, if it was so important to them. And I have support as well, so.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
What's your recommendation, Mr. Martin? I'm fine with option 1 myself.
Those options.
Oh, sure. Oh, you don't have? Oh. Well, option 1 is make no changes, and staff will enforce the town ordinances prohibiting pet pigs. Number 2 is create a new ordinance allowing pigs. The third one is create a narrowly tailored ordinance applicable to the current pig owner situation that would not create a larger system allowing pig ownership. For example, could potentially enact an ordinance where only allow pigs presently owned on March 12, 2019, allowed under HOA rules. If the county is already allowing nothing allowing pot-bellied pigs, or not excluding pot-bellied pigs. I would refer to them and make them changes.
Well, I've said all along that pot-bellied pigs are not farmed pigs. There's a big difference. And these are typically, have been for years, kept as pets. I think the fact that my feelings are that since the homeowners association is not going to give this woman grief, and I'm not sure how long she was in the neighborhood before the town of Stallings took over, but I think there's got to be something that we can do. Either we do nothing and just let the HOA handle it, which is what we said we were going to do, and don't make an ordinance and just say, these are pets, these aren't pigs, like you're gonna find at a pig farm. They're her pets, and I don't know, if the county doesn't eliminate or preclude them, then I think that we should not either, because they are not farm animals. They do not fit in that category.
Any other comments, questions? Ms. Paxton?
Well, this is not the first time we've had this kind of a situation brought before the council. We had a situation where somebody had complaints about a rooster, and we had a request several years ago to change the ordinance to allow chickens, and council chose not to allow either of those things. And I do think that changing the ordinance to allow these pigs would be a mistake, because it does set a precedent. And I understand that they're pets and that they're clean, but somebody else's pet pigs may not be as clean or may not be as well behaved. And I just think, I have a friend whose child likes snakes, and if he wanted to have a boa constrictor, I think we would have concerns about that. So I think our ordinance has served us well over the years, and I would not be in favor of making any changes to allow an exception.
All right, can you make that in the form of a motion, Ms. Paxton?
Yes, I make the motion to approve option 1, which is to make no changes to the town ordinance and have staff enforce the town ordinances prohibiting the pet pigs.
All right, thank you. Give a second.
Can I ask a question, point of order? Wouldn't we only need, since we don't need a motion to do something that we already have enacted, we need a motion to change what we would enact, which would be item 2 or 3. So this motion seems to be.
Well, we can just move on.
That's what option 1 would be.
Right.
We move on. But if somebody wants to make a motion for option 2 or 3, that would be appropriate. But option 1, we do nothing, we have option 1. We want to change it, we do option 2.
Well, we're just going on record. I think that's what we want to do. So, I'm good either way. If we don't, if nobody wants to second, we just move on to the next item on the agenda.
If I may, if the council were to take no action here, would the resident have the opportunity to go before the Board of Appeals and request a variance? But my concern, first of all, I didn't get in on town council to take somebody's pets away. And I agree with Mr. Romanoff that these are pets. However, I strongly have concerns over setting precedent. Precedent was already set with the chickens. And if we had an animal control officer, this would be a non-issue for me.
Let's speak to this. The animal control is handled by Union County. There's not been a problem thus far, so it's not like you're gonna have to hire more animal control people. It's already handled by Union County. So that was, I didn't understand that part of the whole con argument either.
And I think the concern there was that Union County doesn't specifically allow or prohibit it, it's just not mentioned. So in North Carolina, my understanding, and the town attorney can correct me if it's not specifically allowed, or specifically denied, it's allowed. So, in having our previous discussions, the concern more than anything else was how do you manage that? Because some of them are not large animals. Some of them are large animals. You know, whether or not they're neutered, spayed, whether or not they're up for vaccination. It's kind of like with a large dog or something.
What's a great name?
Yeah.
Versus a child.
And I think that's the overwhelming concern here, because none of us want to take away that stuff. It's not what we're here for at all. We just have to have it. Have to have the 10,000, 20,000 foot view.
My HOA, you voted on it and it's not.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Does anybody want a second? All right, nobody seconded it, the motion dies, and we move on to, any other motions to be made? No? So, we'll move on to number 7, the blasting ordinance. So, all right. All right, Mr. Martin. Thank y'all.
So I wanted to bring up this blasting ordinance after hearing from multiple residents in the Fairfield Plantation, Country Woods East, Hunley Creek, Stevens Mill, and Shanamara subdivisions. There's existing blasting going on across 485 that has impacted some of those residents. And now with this new project that is underway at Stevens Mill, in between Fairfield Plantation and Country Woods East, the blasting will be much closer, and there's a lot of concern from the residents over potential damage, notification, and such. And in talking with the town manager and the town attorney, it appears that Union County already has a fairly robust process in place. So the discussion I wanted to bring to council is whether or not there's value added for this community to add to such, or whether or not we can approach some of the residents' concerns through the UDO and some of the development agreement process. And I believe one individual, Jeff, Mayor, if...
Sure.
Good evening, folks. My name is Jeff Kissinger, 1222 Hawthorne Drive. About 3 weeks ago, a gentleman contacted me from a company called DCA. What they provide is a survey type of your property, pre-blast and after blast. Okay, so they come in, take pictures of the outside, the inside, so they can document if any changes to your foundation, and of course for any type of legal action. I was unaware that anything even took place like that. That you actually, blow up the land, rock. Where I live off of Hawthorne, there, part of my backyard, I have rocks probably bigger than this desk here that's out of the ground, and underneath could be 100 feet. That's the rock ledge. So they'll, is what they're planning to do. There's no, permit that's been issued by Union County. I'm in contact with the fire marshal Rigoli several times, and today twice. Nothing's been submitted to them to do any of this blasting. He expects it to happen. I've talked to the project manager. East Coast Drilling will probably be most likely doing the blasting if it in fact gets approved by the county. I understand Stallings, the town of Stallings has no ordinance in place. The fire marshal mentioned, I think Indian Trail Marshal and Marvin have that. He said it's a little bit, more stimulant than what the county provides. So that's my comment here, is I'd like the council and the attorney to look into what would be best benefit our community. If I did a little bit of research on it, it's kind of a really, in fact I sent Mr. Councilman Martin a video to show you that it's actually, they're creating a pretty big shock wave. They got devices that they'll place on different properties. They have, obviously the United States government has stipulations on how big of a blast they can put down, what type of ripple effect that they have to the dwellings around where they're blasted. They can put mats down so debris don't fly in the air, that type of thing. I'm not disputing that, that this is taking place. I don't know if it's going to take place as close as it's going to be to our properties. So,
Thank you, sir.
That's what my
All
comment
right,
is.
thank you,
All
sir.
right.
And Jeff, just for your knowledge, they had a drilling rig in today, and they were drilling to check the bedrock. So nowhere near to Country Woods East.
Right.
It's right up against where I'm at, so it'd probably be a while before you guys would see something, but it's all potential.
Yeah, and they'll, from the blast, like I said, they gotta get a permit from the county. Kevin said he'll notify me once they have to map out exactly where they're gonna detonate the charges. The fire marshals, in close contact with them. They'll look the 911 authorities when this type of blast is going. So they got it down. It's just, something to think about when you all approve developments. This is the type of thing that can happen in our community that I'm sure most of us never thought of blasting happening that close to residential areas. Thank you.
Well, what's the difference between Indian Trails and the counties? Anybody? Is it the amount of the blast,
If I could jump in, I was just reading the Indian Trail ordinance. Every other paragraph references state statutes. I don't know if there's anything original that they add to it, except maybe notification of the town engineer.
All right.
And Alex brought up a good point. Our town engineer, Chris Solid, a great asset for the town, but I don't know that this is necessarily, we should expect this to be in his field of expertise.
No, right.
So again, more than anything else, I just wanted to have the discussion, something to consider. This development right now is occurring close to several in the north part of town, but as we know, there will be future development in some of the areas of town that are very sensitive to development as well, Shanamara and some of those areas.
Mr. Mayor, was part of the concern with bringing this before council, the lack of communication or when blasting was going to take place, and making sure homeowners knew and maybe having some sort of a schedule or that was predictable.
That was my understanding. And how this started coming about was VCE, the company that was hired by this developer to go out and do pre-blasting surveys on hundreds of homes, came in unannounced. There wasn't anything from the town, there wasn't any social media letting folks know that this was going to take place. So people are very sensitive about their homes, understandably. So I think we could have avoided some of the heartburn by having a process of communication in place prior to this.
I'll say one more thing. I've contacted the Department of Water Commissions out of Mooresville. I think we all realize that area of property that's in Stallings is over the Goose Creek watershed, right? The council and some of you up here that voted that in, we're aware of that. I'm sure all them plans are in place, but I don't know, and I've talked to Alan Johnson, who heads our Mooresville office that covers our area, to find out if this blasting is going to affect that at all. There's tributaries that go to the Goose Creek that are part of that property back there. I think when that survey was done back in June, we had a very dry summer start, and a lot of that water was not there. So that's something he's going to look into as well, that they stay off of that. And I'm still reading up on that, learning this, but you have a 200-foot buffer if it's a direct, on the map itself of the waterway. If it's indirect, there's 100 foot. But so that's another thing that I'm pursuing as a property owner, to make sure that all that's followed.
So just to be sure I understand, this VCA is a company that was hired by the people who will be doing the blasting to go around and survey properties to see?
It is. It's called
Pre and
VCE.
post.
VCE. And there's actually a gentleman that represents them out of Mint Hill, but it's VCE. They were hired by, I believe it was East Coast Blasting or the developer. That's that South Stone development. I'm not sure who hired them, but I think it's the blasting company.
Yeah, in VCE, the process, it comes at no fee to the homeowner, but the process is fairly intrusive. They take pictures around the outside of your house, or your windows, your siding, and then they want to come in the house and take pictures of everything interior-wise, all your nail pops, any cracks in the wall, your flooring. So again, that raised a lot of concerns with our residents here.
So essentially, they don't want to pay for anything that they supposedly didn't cause to worsen.
Correct. There's some, a little bit of seaway there, yep.
Dave, can I ask Melanie a question? If you do not allow the survey company into your house, and you do have damage, but you maybe have your own documentation, can you still seek damages?
I think you still could, but their defense would be, well, how do we know it wasn't like that
Yeah.
fiberglass?
I mean, it's a little harder, but if you still have damages, I mean, just because you don't let them in your house doesn't mean you're not going to get damages.
Yeah, so I looked into that a little bit, because I'm not letting them in my house. You know, my wife's a professional photographer, we'll document our house, but, like the attorney said, they had, you know, they'll put these sensors and their seismic things like that. It's the same stuff that they measure, earthquakes with, right? So they'll, you know, if you're not home and not notice that crack, you know, tell them the last time you notice it, but they'll look at the readings. And the fire marshal said that's, you know, that's the group that kind of monitors that type of stuff. You know, there's a science to all this, but every explosion's different. That's what I've been reading. You know, so you just don't know. But yeah, I'm with Councilman Martin. I don't need anybody coming and taking pictures of my house. You know, I don't know who's going to see them pictures.
Exactly.
Just a flyer,
All right, any other information, Mr. Martin?
No.
All right, well, thanks for bringing that to our attention. All right, Alex, 2019-20
Thanks, Jeff.
council priorities.
Sure, I wanted to do something real quickly that I said I was going to do. To just kind of, we kind of take those council priorities and try to kind of funnel it down, right? It's like a funnel. What are the next steps on some of these items? So fiscal responsibility, what does that mean? What are some tangible things that we can do in order to achieve that council goal? And we pull this up there. Because I don't want the council's goals to get dropped. I want there to be kind of tangible action steps for everyone. Some of these, it's not end all be all, but it's kind of that first step of what we're trying to do. So for example, conduct town business in a fiscally responsible manner. We obviously want to adopt a balanced budget and maintain our required reserve levels. Not only required, but the ones we've set for ourselves. And just the actors, and I went through and did all the different things, all the different goals, and tried to put an action step with each one. So, for example, we're putting on a holiday parade. The action step would be the town manager, police chief, and Parks and Rec director meeting with the mayor to understand the vision, and then following up with council with kind of a feasibility analysis and options. So the mayor and I have set up a meeting for that. So that'd be an example. So it's just kind of the first step with each one. Any feedback? Everybody comfortable with that approach?
Yeah, any feedback for Alex on any of these? The hotel tax, I think everybody's, at our last meeting, I told you, the county has agreed to put it on the ballot.
They did.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't remember, yeah, I talked to the chairman of the county commissioners, Mr. Helms.
Was it been voted though?
No, 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 they're gonna put it on their next consent agenda.
Oh, now you did tell us that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yes, I don't know when they meet.
Oh, that's voted on.
But the other part that came back, Mr. Arp came back and said we can only get 3%. The county had rights to 3%, so we're checking that out. We don't think that's accurate. But we don't want to hold up Dean Arp submitting to the legislature on the 12th tomorrow. We still haven't received the draft bill back that we want to present now.
Yes, sir, I've not seen that.
But, yeah, just give Alex any feedback on any of these items. Appreciate your work on this, Alex. Keep us moving forward and checking off the boxes.
And I got to give credit to our staff. We actually went through this and did it together, so everybody's on the same page.
And give 5B, we can read Mrs. Paxton's Citizens Academy outline there, give her some feedback.
Absolutely.
That would be appreciated. Any other comments? move on to the police chief hiring process.
Awesome, thank you. I wanted to share something. So I've asked him 732 times not to retire, but mine is still retiring.
He looks happy about it.
No, I'm tearing up as we speak.
No, you're not.
I need it goes without saying that Miners led this department with integrity, competency, accountability, just heart and soul. Someone who I admire greatly. But with Miner retiring, one of the things I wanted to do is kind of develop what's the best practice for our approach for hiring a police chief. Not just for anybody else, but what's the fit for the town of Stallings. Because we've got such a unique police department, and I really take the decision of who the next police chief is as seriously as possible. I think it's arguable, and I might make this argument, that the town manager's decision of who to hire as a police chief is the most impactful decision as any that I'm going to make. Not having the wrong leadership in the police department can destroy it, not only the organization but the community itself. I tell mine all the time that you know you're good when you start getting taken for granted. I think a lot of the things that seem easy aren't easy. He ensures that through his leadership, they keep on rolling. So not having the right leadership in the police department can set it back for a decade easily. So given the importance of the decision, I've kind of been researching this. It says 6 months, but it's really more than 6 months. What's the best approach for the team of Stallings? Because you can sit down, you can interview somebody, they can seem great in an interview, they can seem competent on paper, and then they come in and they're not. They don't get along with people, they could not know how to run a meeting, they could not work well with other departments, they could not be an effective project manager. Those are just several of many examples. So I wanted to make sure that what we're seeking is what we need. Not only they're well qualified, but a good fit for our department, whether internally or externally. And we assess all the things, the most important things that's going to make a police chief successful. So with that being said, the process that I identified is working with a group called Developmental Associates. They're based in North Carolina, they're out of Chapel Hill, and I think they're the best fit for us. Just going over some of the folks that have they've used. Town of Matthews is probably the closest place. They've used them to hire their police and fire chiefs, and they've done it for places that are smaller than us. They've done it for places that are much bigger than us, and kind of everywhere in between. So it's a process that's kind of custom, but at the same time, it's a unique fit for our needs. So just Matthews, Winston-Salem, Wilson, Brevard, Clinton, Reedsville, Hendersonville, Fayetteville, Burlington, Southern Pines, Greensboro, Hendersonville, Spartanburg, Chapel Hill, Kinston, Durham, Morrisville, Clayton, Statesburg, Georgia, Williamsburg, Virginia, Newport News, Virginia, Danville, Virginia. For university systems, the police chief positions at NC State, UNC Asheville, East Carolina, UNC School of Arts, UNC Pembroke, Fayetteville State University, Elizabeth City State University, Guilford Technical Community College. They do the promotional processes at places large and small. Apex, where I got my start. Charlotte Meck, Greenville, Brevard, a whole host of folks, really well qualified. But I didn't want, given the importance of that, I didn't want to take that list at face value. So I went and I called, I think, just about everybody on the list, and I didn't have a single piece of negative feedback from anybody. So wanted to kind of walk through y'all, if that's all right, the process, and so you can have an understanding of kind of what this would entail. So step one, is we would conduct a job and organizational analysis. So this is basically the input side of things. So it's recognizing that as a manager, I want input from the council, from the public, from the current police chief, from the police chief's command staff, and from everybody in the police department, and any other citizen groups that we identify. What are we looking for? What are the challenges facing the police department? What makes our police department unique? What do we want? What do we see as the key attributes from the next police chief? Because I genuinely want that feedback. I've got to make the decision myself, but I want to know what's important to everyone. From our officers, what's going to make it a good fit for us, counsel, from the public, that kind of thing. We use that to build kind of a candidate profile and post the written job advertisements. And then we basically put it out there to everybody we could, try to get as many qualified officers as possible to apply, again, both internally and externally. The next is we conduct the first level initial screening of candidates. It would be through a standardized process. If you just ask for resumes and cover letters, you can get a whole different, you're not comparing apples to apples. So if you keep it standardized, you can make it so you're comparing apples to apples as much as possible. And then you would conduct second level screens, which would be kind of telephone interviews and emotional testing. These things, in talking to other managers and people who've been involved with the process, this emotional assessment is something that's spot on, is the way it was described to me, that when the results of these tests are very accurate, predictors with a lot of these folks. And emotional intelligence is extremely important. I think Miner's a great example of someone who's really emotionally intelligent, with talking to people, with motivated people. And then the next step, based on the job criteria that we've identified, is I would work with a consultant to design the hiring process. And that would basically, we would look and we would say, all right, what kind of things do we want to evaluate? We probably want to evaluate a mock scenario where they're talking with a subordinate, somebody who's maybe messed up something. How do they interact? How do they coach with that officer? Public, some sort of public engagement mock scenario. They run a meeting effectively, they manage the project, they manage the budget, that kind of thing. And the next step would be get the assessors together and then conduct the selection exercises. You have 6 final candidates, and you would go through those scenarios. The persons who are evaluating them would be experts in those particular fields. For example, if we wanted to evaluate whether the person was cognizant and had a workable knowledge of using police data, for example, to solve problems, we could create a scenario with that. We'd have people who are experts in data bring in, or if there was the example, as we talked about before, with coaching an officer if they messed up with something. You'd have other police chiefs and HR professionals come in and just kind of evaluate and kind of score them out. That would all go to me with all that information. Mental associates would try to lead me to one candidate or the other. They would just give me the information I need in order to make an informed decision. After that, you get a full offer's accepted, background check. There'd be a thorough background check, and then the final step would be providing executive coaching to not only the successful candidates, but if there were any internal candidates that weren't successful, there could be coaching provided to them as well. I know a lot of times some of the feedback you'll hear in hiring processes is, I applied for a job, I went for an interview, I put my heart and my soul into this, I spent so much time, nights and weekends working on this, and nothing. I get a form letter saying I didn't get later. What did I do? What do I need to work on in order to kind of better myself? Was there something I did? Is there anything I need to work on? What can I do in order to improve myself professionally in order to be a viable candidate the next time around?
And
Is that provided for all the 6 finalists or just the in-house candidates?
it will be provided for the successful candidate, for the person, so they would know, even if you're successful, there's always things you can work on, right? It would not be provided for all the candidates. I would like to do it if there were any internal candidates that were not successful. I think it would help if you have got that situation, whether it's an internal candidate that ends up being the police chief or an external candidate. There's most likely going to be internal folks that didn't get it. It helps understand them up. The internal candidates helps them understand why they didn't get it and what they can work on. And really helps, based on what I've read, build kind of support for the new person. It's an information share. As far as cost, it's not cheap. The base fee is $17,500. I negotiated that down from the initial cost, I think an 8% decrease, and it's the same price the town of Matthews paid over 2 years ago now. So I think if you factor in inflation, which I would in this case, we would be getting it for cheaper. There would be additional costs, for emotional assessment testing, the cost of those tests. For things like a background check, we want that to be very thorough. We wouldn't want to hire somebody who seems great and something's uncovered, should have been uncovered in a background check. And then, of course, if there's any, if you have any external candidates from out of town, not in the Charlotte area, so you get somebody from the beach or the mountains or whatever, then their travel expenses, like a hotel room, that kind of thing. So there would be some other additional costs, but I think, because we're going to have some money that we save in the interim, I think those funds will pay for most of, if not all, depending on the amount of time that goes by until final candidate selection for this. But I'd be willing to, I really believe in this process. I believe in we go and use major discretionary funding to use that, so y'all don't have to come up with funding during budget time. One of the questions I've gotten a lot with this process is, Alex, are you looking to hire an external candidate or an internal candidate? And the question is, I don't know. It's premature to say. I want to hire the right person. It could be internal. It could be external. This process will help us identify not only a well-qualified candidate, but somebody who's a good fit for us. Because somebody who's a good fit for Stallings may not be a good fit for Matthews or Indian Trail, and vice versa. And so this process is always about figuring out decreasing the risk as much as possible. Because when you hire somebody, there's always a risk, whether it's putting somebody internally into a new spot or externally bringing somebody else. There's always a risk. There's no sure thing that this candidate's going to succeed 110%. But it's all about decreasing the risk as much as possible so that when we make that selection, we can, that we did everything possible, I did everything possible as a manager to hire the right person. Because if we don't hire the right person, it'll affect the police department. I think you'll see people go to other departments eventually. I think we're fooling ourselves if we think that other departments aren't recruiting our good officers on a regular basis, just because of the quality of the officers we got. And so I do believe this is the right approach, and this is my plan to kind of do this. With appreciate any feedback you might have. We'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm just happy to get to talk to y'all. I've been looking on for a long time.
Well, I'll kick it off. I appreciate all the work you've done on this, and I certainly think we need a more structured process this time, and this is it. However, 2 things.
Okay.
If you and Chief know, matter of fact, no doubt about it, as an internal candidate, I'd like you all to act on that, and maybe, if you're shadow of a doubt, we know there's an internal candidate between y'all two. So I would support that. Secondly, I'm always concerned when we hire outside consultants that they're going to look at outside people first. And would it be a bias towards our internal candidates? Because I don't care how good they are, it's human nature for an outside consultant to look for an outside person. That's just human nature. I've seen it done too many times. And I just don't want that bias to be, they may put up, the ultimate decisions with the council. As long as they're putting up some internal candidates in their final six, maybe I'm okay with that. But if the final six were all outside candidates, I'd be very skeptical of, I want that to be known to them, I'd be very skeptical of those six, because I think they would have a bias. Certainly approves in their list of their list of customers of other towns, but I'd also be interested in what percentage of those customers, those other towns and municipalities, do they hire from outside or from within. That'd be interesting. You don't have time to do a survey on that, and I don't want you to waste your time on that, but that'd be interesting. Because Matthews, they didn't vote on their fire chief, they didn't vote from within, they went to Charlotte. We got one guy that was retired, that had to be timing and everything. So that's one case for the outside. So that's my 2 cents.
I just want to clarify, you said this is our decision. This is Alex's decision.
Well, that's true.
And Alex is asking for help, and I agree with Alex's approach that Alex is asking for help on this very important decision. Get it. It's not an outrageous sum of money. You've got it covered. You've got a plan to cover the expense. And if that's the case, get the help that you think you need to make a very, very good decision. And again, I am in favor of promote from within if possible, but I'm also, when I was on school board, I was very disappointed that before I got on, they promoted from within without even looking outside. So it was very important that we look outside. And of course, Dr. Ellis was promoted from within, so with an outside consultant helping us. So I know it can happen either way. I just think the best, what's important for us is that the best candidate be hired, regardless of whether they're in or out. You get the best candidate and go for it.
Ditto what the mayor said, to the thousandth degree. You were taking the words right out of my mouth. But anyway, I do have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
On the input part, how will you weigh the different groups? Will they all be equal? Will you take more from the public or the police department, the officers or the command staff? Will you just, how will you weigh those?
There wouldn't be any set formula.
Okay. And then, how long has the development, what's this place called? Development Associates? How long have they been in business? Do you know? Business?
Sitting there,
Bless you.
I believe they were founded in 1991.
Okay, cool. Let's see, is that everything?
Any other quick, Mr. Martin?
Yeah, I want to echo some of what the mayor said. I completely support and would encourage us looking at internal candidates, but at the end of the day, the best candidate needs to be won out, and if it takes an unbiased outside opinion to give that to us, it's worth every penny.
I just want to say, I'm pleased that the process, as complicated and involved as it is, can happen as quickly as what you described, because it has a 90-day timeline for this process to take place, which is a pretty quick turnaround given the depth of analysis that we're planning to do. So I support it.
I already said everything to Alex last Friday. I support this process, and as you were talking, Mr. Mayor, I agree with Sean. It was like, okay, I don't need to say anymore.
Yeah,
He said
so
it.
I think everybody agrees, I agree with the process. I just want to make my thoughts known. So if you could let them know, this is the thoughts of the council. I'll be more than happy to meet with them on their first meeting or whatever, when they're sitting up there. Day one, what was that?
But I think we may, if it's all right, if y'all be willing, have them come in and talk with you guys and listen to y'all's thoughts. You've got a lot of great ideas and feedback.
As long as it doesn't hold up the process, then it's important.
Probably, we've got probably some scheduling time frames, looking probably May, kind of get started with those focus groups, just from a scheduling standpoint.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, again, appreciate all your hard work on this. We couldn't agree with more. We got, very fortunate to have Chief Plow in-house. I guess you trained by his brother. Give him all the credit.
That's perfectly, one thing to say. I'm glad I didn't hear Alex's spiel on the importance of the job before I took it, because I would have never.
All right.
Is it feasible to talk to other officers where the staff was used to make the decision for the chief, to see what their opinion of that process was?
So I've talked to officers who participated in that process. I've not talked to other officers that are subordinates to those officers.
Yeah, I would guess just kind of get your opinion of whether the town structure was carried on from somebody from the outside.
You say carried on, what do you mean?
Like you were saying, whether it's the right fit for Stallings. So if somebody from Asheville may not have the same outlets that you were envisioning.
Sure.
So that maybe talking on that, one of those other officers would help you.
I appreciate that feedback. We'll take a look at that.
All righty, can I get a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11, subsection A3 and A5?
So moved.
First by Mr. Shaw, second by Ms. Romanow, all in favor? Unanimous? All right, thank y'all.
Here, the conference room.
Well,
Thank you for coming tonight. I didn't mean to sound harsh if I did. I have a hard time understanding why people think renters are going to be doing more crime than other residents. I mean, you can have drug dealers, drug dealers living in the